Hey, what's happening, guys? This is Orca from Orca's Gaming Corner, and you're watching the review of Control. Control is a sci-fi third-person action-adventure game that released on 27th of August 2019, developed by Remedy Studios and published by 505 Games. If you guys are not familiar with Remedy's work, well, they are very well known for Max Payne, Max Payne 2, Alan Wake, Quantum Break, and now Control. Control pulls its strength from the unique oddball world with its supernatural events and the eclectic set of characters that give it life and bring about an incredible sense of place. The main narrative here is one of the best I have seen, and it is the best by 2019 standards. It brings forth a sense of mystery and excitement and a bit of horror that keeps you engrossed in the world completely till you complete the 15-hour odd campaign. Let's talk about the plot and characters. You play as Jesse Faden, who is in search of her brother who was taken by the Federal Bureau of Control. The game begins with you entering the Bureau's New York headquarters, and in a short period of time, you come to know that the director of the Bureau of Control is murdered, and you see a weapon lying down on the floor besides the director's dead body. Suddenly you realize that there is an innate urge within you that wants you to pick up the weapon, and unable to control this urge, you pick it up. While the weapon is in your hand, you notice that the weapon is alive and can communicate to you. So after this, you are transported to an astral plane of existence, or simply put it, another dimension, where you get to try out the weapon on an obstacle field, and on passing this test, the weapon accepts you as its master. This acceptance of you by the weapon automatically makes you the new director of the Federal Bureau of Control, which is divulged later in the game. Well folks, at this time I was just around an hour into the game and I was already getting some weird vibes. The characters in the game are extremely well written and they fit the typical bureau scenario perfectly. The first person you meet in the game, the janitor Artie, the dead director Zachariah Trench, Jesse's brother Dylan Faden, the head of the bureau operations Helen Marshall, and the head of research Emily Pope are some of the fantastic characters in the game. Jesse Faden is attached to each character in some way. However, I felt that her bond with these characters were not strong enough, or maybe I felt that because the game does not do enough to garner an emotional response from the player. In the case of Control, I'd say the characters are more like mentors guiding you throughout your journey instead of them actually accompanying you on your missions and fighting besides you. This still does not take away from the fact that the characters are fantastic and fit their role perfectly. In fact, they are so sharply written that you want them to have a more intricate and a strong bond with Jesse on an emotional level. Well, let's move on to graphics and world. Firstly, you have to understand that Control as a game begins and ends inside the New York headquarters building referred to as the Old House. Here there are no lush open grasslands, nor huge jungle areas, nor any snow-swept mountains. It is just one building and that's it. So I have to give props to Remedy for the world design and the graphics that is at display here. Control sits on the pinnacle of cutting-edge graphical technology that can be displayed in a game in 2019. It comes loaded with the latest graphical features such as ray tracing and DLSS, which I know cannot be displayed or used by all systems and is a feature implemented by the NVIDIA RTX cards. But I feel it would be remiss of me not to point that out, because the outcome of ray tracing can be spectacular if implemented correctly, and Control is a showcase of ray tracing unlike which the world has never seen before. So DLSS as it stands is deep learning super sampling, which is the other technique that is used in Control. DLSS is a kind of AI upscaling technique that helps you play at higher resolutions such as 4K from a base resolution of 1080p or 1440p without any noticeable performance hits and with very less visual compromise. The ray traced global illumination implemented in Control is superb with super realistic lighting and beautiful reflections, and the distinction between different materials is extremely precise and accurate. The use of physics is outstanding The way the object gets destroyed in combat is, I think, the most realistic I have seen in a video game, and the particle effects make it feel all the more immersive. The cutscenes are all to the point and very well executed, and the animations and lip sync are perfect. The world of Control is a unique one. I've played many games, watched many movies and series, but never have I experienced something like Control. From drab office rooms to huge sprawling hallways filled with floating bodies of zombified humans to complete nothingness. All this and much more can be experienced in this one building. Control feels like entering Alice's Wonderland, only this time round the world is much more strange and profound than all the versions of Alice in Wonderland put together. Accessibility of the different floors and sections of the old house can get downright mind-numbing at times. There is a plethora of different sections of the building with large number of passages and corridors that scale both vertically and horizontally. The level design is phenomenal in this game. Everything has been very well thought out, and the attention to detail is simply astounding. Now let's move on to gameplay. Well, gameplay for a fact is fantastic. The gameplay is what glues the world of Control together. As Director Faden, majority of your responsibilities are to free the sections of Bureau by capturing the control points and getting rid of those people affected by alien entity called His. You have your trusty service weapon that is upgradable and also can be used in different forms. Along with this weapon, you also get psychic and physical abilities as you control more and more objects of power. Some of these abilities are the ability to telepathically throw objects at enemies, levitate in air, and do quick short movements to dodge projectiles from the enemies. All the weapons and characters can be upgraded in the game using the control points, and the control points can also be used to traverse from one location to another in the game. Gunplay is surprisingly good in the game, but it is not as satisfying as throwing chunks of metal and concrete at enemies while you effortlessly levitate in the air. Once you get a hang of the controls, you can fly around and rain hell on the enemies below, and it makes you feel like a badass. There are not many boss battles, however, if you have not gone through the proper upgrades, the later missions can be a challenge. Control also throws a bunch of puzzles at you, and these puzzles can really get weird at times. And so it's a good idea to read through all the documents and papers that you collect while you stroll around in the maps. All in all, gameplay is tremendous, engaging and satisfying. And let's now move on to the final section, that is sound. The sound in the game is excellent. It brings a sense of eeriness and surreal feel to the game. The constant chanting and humming of the floating bodies made me feel an uncanny form of terror that resembled a cultish chant that happens while someone is getting sacrificed for all the wrong reasons. The hissing sound that is there in your head when you go near a contaminated area, the sound of weapons and projectiles flying, and especially speech within the game, all add to the immersiveness of the game. So now you know that the sound is fantastic. Before I end the review, I'll talk a bit about performance. I've played Control on RTX 2070 Super with Ryzen 5 1600 and 16GB of memory at 4K with DLSS and ray tracing turned on. I get around 45 to 65 FPS and I am totally fine with this. As Control is not a multiplayer game, it is a single player game, and I think you can play at these FPS. However, if you have a card which is at a lower tier than mine, I'd suggest reducing the resolution to 1440p or 1080p. Lastly, I don't think there will be any game that is like Control for generations to come. And if you play it, you'll know what I'm talking about. So that's all folks. Like, share and subscribe to my channel if you like more reviews like this and if you're into gaming. And also turn on the notification bell. Have a good day.